H for perpetual fuel. He stood about 5 foot 5 inches, but he acted like he was 7 feet tall. His back had been broken from a parachute accident, one of many injuries he had sustained over his 18 years as a SEAL. The right side of his face seemed locked in a smile, while his left side would offer up his emotions at the moment, most of the time something between a growl and a grimace. We called him Popeye, although not to his face. He was a chief petty officer, and the only way we ever addressed him was chief. We nicknamed him Popeye because his forearms were abnormally large, and his version of spinach was a 64-ounce 7-Eleven big gulp of black coffee and a can of Copenhagen tobacco. He always looked at you, with his head cocked to the left, as if he were sizing you up for a fist fight. What he lacked in height, he more than made up for in attitude. One of his favorite expressions was, "Ain't the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of fight in the dog." His other favorite expression was the one he spent the most time proving to us by way of making us work out until we vomited, or sit in cold water until hypothermia set in, and then sit there some more. His was like a personal mindset training coach, and he would remind us daily of it. The body obeys the brain, and the body is a brain-housing group. He would spend hours getting us to our breaking point, where the pain or cold was so intense that we would question our ability to continue. At that point, Instructor Popeye would smile as he said, "Excellent, now we train." To him, the initial long runs, excessive PT, or cold water immersions were nothing more than a warm-up. The real training began when we reached a limit in our heads. He wanted us to get comfortable being uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. More specifically, he wanted us to be familiar with pushing beyond our preconceived limitations. As soon as we would break through one limit, he would look for us to break the next one. It was a never-ending cycle for him. As far as I could tell, it was how he approached life, and he made it his mission to teach us how to embrace his mindset. Instructor Popeye was not part of standard SEAL training. He ran a remedial phase called Rollback Land. The moniker denotes what happens to a BUD/S candidate when they are injured after Hell Week. If you are injured before Hell Week, a candidate gets rolled back to the starting point of first phase. Anyone spending time with Popeye means they were injured, but not badly enough to be medically dropped from the program. In my case, I had made it halfway through second phase, about 3.5 weeks, which is about 5.5 weeks past Hell Week before my lungs started bleeding. I was pulled out of my original class 181 and put into Rollback Land with Instructor Popeye for 5.5 weeks. I then re-entered training just after Hell Week and had to repeat the 5+ weeks of SEAL training. Many of us in Rollback Land did not have the best attitudes, including me. The idea that we had to endure more than 5 weeks of Instructor Popeye and then repeat 5 weeks of BUD/S training would make any normal person upset, if not downright depressed. I was starting to fall into the latter category. I would go to bed thinking about the negative hypotheticals of this sucks right now and it single quotes as only going to get worse when I go back through 5 weeks of misery all over again. I would replay particularly unpleasant training exercises that I knew I would have to repeat, such as extended dune runs. I hated running. The training runs for the 14-mile timed run, 3.5-mile timed swim, the early morning log PT, surf torture, the list went on. Every time I thought of an evolution had already performed, I seemed to focus on the pain of having to repeat it again. I could feel my attitude slipping, and Instructor Popeye saw it too? At first my negativity presented itself in the form of snide remarks to Popeye's overly positive attitude when challenging us by barking out, "Whoever pukes first wins." Side note, Mike Ryan typically always won that competition. He was a PT machine, and he's now my brother-in-law. I married his sister now, that's a swim buddy. I would respond with something sarcastic like, "Oh, can't wait not to win that one." Most of the time, I said it under my breath, just out of Popeye's earshot. I kept getting bolder with my comments and getting chuckles from other members of Rollback Land, until one day I said it too loudly. I regretted it the moment the sarcastic tone of my comment, "Can't wait for more PT," left my mouth. Popeye stopped and spun around like a gorilla ready to attack its foe. He zeroed in on me, staring directly into my eyes. He didn't blink as he said, "Boys, you carry on with the PT. Mr. Mills and I are going over the berm. The berm is a large, Navy-made sand dune created in the late fall to shield the compound from the rougher winter season waves. Its secondary function is to act as a wall from the public and, in this case, my Rollback Land classmates." I was about to get one-on-one training with Chief Popeye, and I was not looking forward to it. "Ensign Mills, I noticed your attitude declined the moment you joined my training program, and it's time we have a conversation." He raised both index fingers and used them as quotation marks as he said the word conversation, about attitude. I tried for a moment to brush off my comment to see if it would lessen my ensuing punishment, with a half-hearted, "Ah, Chief, you know I was just kidding." He looked at me with his head cocked to the left and said, "No, you are not, and I am not either. Hit surf, Ensign Mills. Time to do your laundry and wash that bad attitude out of you." I spent the entire PT session doing my laundry while he gave me attitude adjustment training. The drill was tedious and freezing. It comprised wading out to chest-deep water, taking off one piece of clothing, such as my blouse and old World War II-styled green shirt, and vigorously pretending to wash it in the surf until he decided I'd washed it enough, at which point he would yell, "Dry." No walking was allowed. I would run the 75 yards back to him, place the shirt neatly on the dry sand above the high water mark, roll it in sand until completely covered, then run back into the surf zone to wash the next article of clothing. By the end of the drill, I was completely naked. The public is not allowed on this portion of beach, and my clothes were laid out on the beach like a series of Legos, all in position ready to be connected to form a fully uniformed bud. As candidate. Once all my laundry was in the dry cycle, as he put it, he had me lie flat in only about 6 to 9 inches of water with my head toward the sea. I couldn't see the swells coming and had to time my breaths as the waves washed over me twice, once as they rolled to shore and a second time as they receded back to sea. He called this the spin cycle, and it was in this cycle that he added his own form of detergent, his mindset philosophy. The process ended by putting one piece of clothing on at a time as I went back, out to chest-deep water. The idea was that when I put those clothes back on I had washed the bad attitude out of me. Of course, he did not stop there, because, well, laundry is incomplete until it goes through a dryer cycle. His dryer cycle involved dune sprints and, for good measure, 8-count bodybuilders, a push-up with squat thrust and jump, and lunges between, sprints up the 30-yard sand dune. I puked several times. His mindset detergent was powerful. My choice was to endure, or quit. He was known for getting candidates to ring the bell, and this was definitely the kind of drill that would get one seriously thinking about dropping out. As miserable as I was, and I was very miserable, I heard what he was saying, and I knew he was right. My attitude needed an adjustment. I was having my own form of a pity party, and that negative attitude was infecting the whole rollback class. I have always remembered his words of mindset wisdom and, over the years, honed them to help course-correct not only myself, but also friends who ask, teammates, co-workers, my fur boys, and, of course, my clients. Except we don't do our laundry in cold water. We go to the gym. I call this gym the Positivity Gym, and every one of us has this gym. We just have to learn how to use the equipment. Positivity Gym basic training. Have you ever conducted a genetic test, such as 23andMe, where they take a sample of your DNA and give you a report about your genetic makeup? Perhaps you have. Let me ask you, were you one of the lucky ones that got the positivity gene? Grab your report and scroll down. It comes right after the leadership gene, and just before your success gene. Did you screen positive for it? Wait, what? You can't find it, nor can you find the leadership and success genes. Well, guess what? That's because there is no such thing as a positivity gene. It doesn't exist, just like there is no such thing as a leadership or success gene. Yep, that's right. Your attitude is yours and yours alone. That's rule number 1. You have to train yourself to be positive. Rule 1. You own your attitude. There are very few things in life we can control, but those few can determine our direction. Your attitude is one of the single most important things you can control, and if you are not careful, you will let others influence and sometimes even control your attitude for you. The reason attitude is so critical to your success is that it directly influences how you communicate, collaborate, and contribute. People experience you through your attitude. Your attitude drives your action and how people act toward you. You might be asking, if attitude is so important, why didn't you list it as one of the 3 pillars in the mindset loop of thoughts, focus, and beliefs? That's a good question. So let's go. Attitude comes from thoughts and feelings. When we attach to a thought and focus on it, we generate a feeling. Thoughts and feelings work hand in hand. The more you focus on them, the more they feed off each other to produce an emotion. Psychologists call this interaction the thought-feeling loop. This loop creates energy, which is called an emotion. I love how emotion is described in the book The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership by Jim Dedmer, Diana Chapman, and Kaylee Klemp. They refer to emotion as emotion or energy in motion. Emotions can be momentary, such as expressing how you feel when you feel it, or they can stick around, swirling inside you, and sometimes causing all kinds of problems by stressing you out. The key takeaway here is to remember that thoughts and feelings generate emotions, and these emotions set your attitude. And who controls which thoughts you connect with? You. Hence, your attitude is up to you. At the right is how I visualize the thought-feeling loop. You have no one to blame but yourself on the attitude you decide to embrace. If Viktor Frankl could find a positive attitude while imprisoned at Auschwitz, surely you can learn to decide your own attitude. Rule to the body and brain are swim buddies. One of the single most important lessons learned during SEAL training is the body-brain connection. Whether it was instructors Half-Butt, Psycho, Popeye, Aloha, Antichrist, Nutball, Boston, or any of the other colorful personalities in training, they all adhered to the importance of this body-brain connection. Of course, they didn't call it the body-brain connection. They referred to it as our single most important weapons platform, one they routinely reminded us that we were no use to the SEAL teams, the Navy, or even our country if we did not learn to harness the power of our weapons platform. They would reason, what good does it do us to give you expensive equipment to use if you cannot even control the body that is using it? Bud, S, and all the post-training classes after graduation centered around the control of the most important weapon on the battlefield, our bodies and how we use them. I can still hear Instructor Boston in his South Boston accent through his ever-present electronic megaphone, repeating, "Ya body obeys ya brain. If it's the other way around, you ain't making it through." Instructor Popeye would chirp constantly about our bodies being a brain-housing group. He loved delivering scientific dissertations on how all the systems of the body are designed to support the brain while we were treading water, keeping our elbows above our heads, and wearing diving weight belts. Instructor Antichrist never said much besides his grunts, but when he did string a sentence or two together, he instructed us to make your body obey your brain's commands. Command now, or quit and save me the time. When Instructor Aloha, a big wave surfer from the north shore of Oahu who conducted remedial breath-holding classes, he reminded us that your body is trying to take charge. Don't let it put it in its place and continue mission. In this case, the mission was staying relaxed and continuing to hold our breath. All teams in SEAL team are based on the swim buddy construct. 2. Swim pairs make up a fire team. 2 fire teams form a squad, and 2 squads are a platoon. As the Army and Navy work closer together today, SEAL Team has adopted an Army term, squadron, which is little larger than to SEAL platoons. Popeye referred to our vital weapons system as swim buddies. The way Popeye saw it, the brain and body were swim buddies. They needed each other to survive, thrive, and, of course, conduct missions. However, swim pairs need one person to take the lead. Whether you are walking through the jungle, busting through a door, or conducting combat swimmer missions, there is always one of the pair taking the lead. Of course, in SEAL Team, that position rotates depending on the mission. In the case of our individual weapon system, that leader is the brain. Popeye often reminded us that the body would try to assume the leadership position when it was pushed outside its comfort zone. He would constantly tell us that it was in his job description to push our bodies outside their comfort zones so he could teach our brains how to lead our bodies during these times of discomfort. Popeye was quite good at his job. What does the body-brain connection mean to you? Your body fuels your brain, and the better fueled your brain is, the better it will operate, so it can in turn take better care of your body. The better each swim buddy functions, the more powerful and potent they can be as a team. In other words, they will be better at making the hard decisions to keep pressing on when things get tough. By the way, things always get tough when you are in pursuit of something you have never done before. There have been hundreds of books written about each of the three components I am about to list when it comes to the basic building blocks of your weapons platform. This book is not about educating you on every detail of sleep, nutrition, and exercise, but it is about ensuring you understand these levers and how critical they are to your performance. I refer to these building blocks with my coaching and speaking clients in the form of a question that I ask routinely. How well did you see this week? Like most actions I coach, I organize them into acronyms so others and I can remember them. C stands for sleep, eat, and exercise, and they are in that order for a reason. Sleep is number 1, eating is number 2, and exercise rounds out the bottom of the priority list when it comes to ensuring your body-brain swim pair in good functioning order. Sleep. I had a rowing coach who used to say, "You'll get all the sleep you want when you're dead." My teammates and I even fell for it a few times, but the truth is, if you want to perform, you must get good and sufficient amounts of sleep. Here are a few of the basics to consider to ensure that you do get quality sleep. Physical space. Make sure that the room is dark so dark you can't see your hand 6 inches in front of your face, cool less than 65 degrees, and quiet or with some kind of white noise. There are plenty of sleep sound machines for sale. A weighted blanket is a plus. I use one and find it helpful. The right mattress is also critical if you're thinking, I don't need to spend too much on a high-quality mattress. Remind yourself that about 1/3 of your life is spent on it. Nutrition. Be aware that alcohol crushes your REM sleep. That's the deep sleep you need to restore and recharge. If you need to be at your best the next day, go without alcohol the night before. Experts recommend no caffeine after 2 p.m. I follow that rule. It works well for me. Reduce your water intake a couple hours before bedtime. Getting up to pee in the middle of night breaks up your sleep and creates opportunities for your mind to reactivate and think of things that will keep you awake. Exercise. Experts suggest getting some sunlight throughout your day, as it helps with melatonin production, your go-to sleep chemical. So kill 2 birds with 1 stone and conduct a workout outside. Walking counts. There are numerous studies to support the link between exercising and good sleep. Research it for yourself, but some amount of daily exercise, again, walking counts, will aid in a good night's slumber. I am admittedly only scratching the surface here, and if you want to go deep on sleep, here are 2 books I really enjoy. Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker and Sleep for Success by Dr. James B. Mass. Doing the above will get you well on your way to great, consistent sleep, and your swim buddies will thank you for it, I promise. Eat. I am not a nutritionist, but I was a certified optimal performance trainer for over a dozen years while running Perfect Fitness, and I learned the basics of nutrition. I am not going to tell you what to eat, but I am going to share with you 3 critical rules that my nutritionist shares with me. Yes, I use a nutritionist, and he's invaluable to helping me perform at my best. His name is John Anderson, founder of Deep Water Method, and his rules are simple and very effective. 1. Never be hungry. 2. Eat on a schedule. 3. Eat something even when you don't feel hungry on your schedule. John is a performance nutritionist, and his focus is helping people perform better. He compares our metabolism to a fire that needs to be constantly stoked. However, it must be fed the proper kinds of wood. If you use plastic man-made foods, it might burn, yet it will give off all kinds of toxins. Use whole foods and eat every 3 hours between 5 and 6 times a day while following his 3 rules, and you will notice your energy improving within 48 hours. Of course, there are different meal plans for different types of results: gaining muscle, losing weight, or managing weight. My focus is ensuring you have the energy required to keep taking daily action. Consult a nutritionist if you want more out of your meal plan than just energy. However, I completely understand that you might not be a fan of what I like or have different nutrition goals than I do, and I totally get it. What I am trying to drive home for you is to have a plan to get the most out of what you put in your body. There are plenty of nutrition plans out there. Find the one that works for you. The point is to eat like an athlete because you are an athlete taking daily action. Exercise with my team. I invented the perfect push-up along with about 100 other fitness products. I climb mountains to stay in shape, including 3 of the 7 summits. I have trained for over 7 years, 6 days a week as a sealand, rode competitively for 9 years. I have done a lot of physical exercise in my life. Yet here I am listing it as the 3rd priority on our weapons platform performance requirements list. That's because most things in life are a part of a system. They interoperate in some form or fashion and depend on each other to perform better. Get little sleep for days and eat junk, and guess how motivated you will be to exercise? Not much. In fact, the only motivation you will have is to seek the next quick fix to feel a little bit better. Quick fixes come in many forms, from sugary foods and highly caffeinated drinks to alcohol and drugs. Allow this cycle of highs and lows to continue and you will find yourself overweight, out of shape, exhausted, and completely unmotivated to do anything but focus on simply getting by. I have been there myself. In the Michael Myers comedy movie series Austin Powers, Myers plays several characters, one of whom is called Fat Bastard. This wildly obese Scot, at one point in the series, explains why he is the way he is by stating in a heavy Scottish accent, "I am unhappy because I am fat, and I'm fat because I'm unhappy. I call this loop the fat bastard syndrome, and I use it as a metaphor to express how an unhealthy habit creates an unhappy emotion and how they feed on each other. I am using this expression as an example of how sleep, eating, and exercise are all linked together. If one is off, the other 2 will be negatively impacted. In this case, I want you to realize that the better sleep and nutrition you have, the more energy you have to exercise. When you exercise, your body creates healthy, feel-good chemicals, such as serotonin and dopamine, that make you feel somewhere between good and great. When you feel good, you will want to continue feeling good, so you will exercise again. In this case, the fat bastard syndrome works in the opposite way too. I'm happy because I exercise, and I exercise because I'm happy. When the first 2 are in alignment, you will actually look forward to working out. I know it might sound crazy to some, but if you feel good, exercise will only help you feel better. There are of course outliers of this. Too much exercise can be a bad thing. So always check with your doctor and get your body systems checked before embarking on any exercise plan. Before you start to dismiss exercise as a nice-to-have and not a must-have in your weekly routine, Let me remind you that you are an athlete regardless of your profession. Our bodies are designed to perform at their best when we care for them through sleep, nutrition, and exercise. Now you may think I am overdoing it with calling us all athletes, but I am not, and here is an example to prove it. I am on the professional speaking circuit. I give about 50 speeches a year to audiences as large as 40,000 people. I customize my speeches, so there is more prep and practice that goes into my speaking, but I know my information cold. I once wore a heart rate monitor for a Be Unstoppable speech. I give several types of speeches, but my focus is helping people be unstoppable at leading themselves and their teams. This particular day, I was speaking to a small group of approximately 60 senior executives. I knew no one in the audience, but I knew what I was talking about. I put the monitor on 15 minutes before the speech, spoke for an hour, and took it off 15 minutes afterward. I burned 976 calories. My heart rate spiked to 85% of my max and averaged 71% over the duration of the speech. And a reminder, I was presenting information I knew. I did not have a huge risk of failure, nor was I dependent on this speech for a sales quota or a fundraising goal. Imagine what my heart rate would be if there was more on the line for me financially or professionally. My point is, no matter what type of work you are in, your body will be dealing with stress and how well it handles. Stress is directly correlated to, can you guess? How well you see, sleep, eat, and exercise. Last point before I offer up some simple exercise guidelines. Going after a dream is work. John C. Maxwell says it best, dreams only work if you do. It's an old but accurate expression. Work as defined mathematically looks like this. W equals m times a times d. W equals mass multiplied by acceleration multiplied by distance. In physics terms, energy must be expended to perform work, and there are plenty of mathematical equations to define and quantify work. I am not asking you to quantify your ability to work, but I am imploring you to understand the direct correlation between your ability to perform work and your ability to accomplish your dream. Exercise builds strength and endurance that you will need in boatloads depending on the size of your dream. Please think of exercise as a mission-critical daily action that will help you build the stamina required to achieve your dream, whatever your dream, including non-athletic events such as writing a book, or creating art, or giving a speech, or leading a business team. It does not matter what your dream is, you will need endurance to persist, and that comes from exercise. When I use the term exercise, I am referring to some kind of sustained physical effort. I am not suggesting you need to be an Ironman triathlete or a Navy SEAL or perform some kind of superhuman level of effort for hours and hours each day. On the contrary, I want you to find some physical effort that you enjoy and incorporate it into your weekly and daily schedule. Here are a few simple rules to understand about exercise, listed in order of importance. Frequency exercise is an accumulative process. You can work out in 5-minute increments every hour on the hour for 8 hours, and that will count as a total of 40 minutes of exercise for that day. If you are just starting out and have never really exercised, focus on frequency first. I would much prefer you do 10 minutes a day every day than 70 minutes once a week. Building the habit is the most important first step. Please think of exercise as an event in your calendar. It is a daily action item that you can execute on. Incidentally, when calendaring exercise, consider this: the most popular times are in the morning, during lunch, or after work. Again, make it work for you, but find a time every day for exercise, and I promise you will be happy you did it. 2. Duration. Once you have an exercise frequency and are comfortable with it, dare I say, even enjoying it, then you can look to add time to your exercising. Depending on your goals, duration is an important metric of exercise. Over time, our body-brain swim buddies are very adept at figuring out ways to reduce our energy output during a repeat exercise routine. For example, Let's say you have decided to walk 1 mile a day on a treadmill at 3 miles per hour. The first day you walk, you burn 200 calories. A few weeks later, you will have only burned perhaps 175 calories. A couple of things are happening. 1. You are getting in better shape. So, your body doesn't need as many calories to walk the same distance. And 2. Your brain is working behind the scenes with your body to optimize your stride and breathing more efficiently every time you take a step. This is why you will have gains early from exercise routines that then plateau unless you adjust duration along with the next two rules: intensity and type. 3. Intensity. This is about how hard you are exercising, and it's measured through heart rate. Once you have frequency and duration dialed in, use intensity to improve your exercise gains if this is something you seek. Knowing your max heart rate (HR) is important, and here is a simple way to do it. 220 minus your age equals your max HR. Multiply your max HR by 0.55, 0.65, and 0.85 respectively to determine your HR training zones. This is a very simplistic way to get started, and I highly recommend researching HR training zones for your specific exercise routines. Better yet, hire a personal trainer to help you get started or improve your exercise routines. The 0.55, 0.65, and 0.85 represent 55%, 65%, and 85% of your max HR. These zones will help you modulate your training to improve your conditioning and also give you targets to focus on while exercising. The first two zones, 55 and 65%, are considered fat-burning zones, while the zones above that are typically shorter in duration and are for more intense cardiovascular conditioning. You do improve your aerobic conditioning in lower HR zones as well. So, do not think you have to go hard to get the benefits. Not true. 4. Type. As mentioned earlier, our brain-body swim pair is adept at making us more energy efficient every time we perform the same movement pattern. Furthermore, expect to get bored doing the same exercise over and over again, which is why it is really important, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, to rotate among different forms of exercise. Walking, swimming, biking, hiking, running, rowing, and at least 50 other forms of exercise are out there. Try some that you have never done before. You just might like it. Or perhaps you might like that challenge of mastering a new form. The point is that variety is the spice of life, and that definitely applies to exercise too. Rotating from walking one day to a stationary bike the next will not only help your body get more gains, but also give you something to look forward to. There are, of course, more variables you can adjust over time with exercise, but the 4 listed above will get you into the winner's column for most any dream you seek to achieve. If your dream requires more, please consult a professional trainer to help you avoid muscle imbalances and improve speed, agility, or elasticity, to name a few. And if you are like me, and are great at making excuses for why you cannot exercise, then here's one exercise routine you can do anywhere, anytime: the bodybuilder exercise. The basic concept is to do a push-up, but you have to stand up in between each push-up. Like all exercises, it can be made more intense with just a few simple modifications. Rule 3: there is always a positive to a negative. Nature is built on balance, called homeostasis. For some, the experience of a negative event is considered just that, a negative outcome they wished hadn't happened. But for others, the negative event can actually be a positive event. I know you are already challenging this statement by thinking of catastrophic events such as a hurricane, tornado, earthquake, tsunami, and the myriad natural disasters, to say nothing of the massive number of tragic human events of loss and suffering around the world. Every event is, of course, different and distinct, and I am certainly not trying to minimize any event of human suffering or loss, but what I want you to understand is that the laws of nature seeking balance apply to all of us, meaning there is always an equal and opposite reaction to every event, good or bad. From the science of quantum mechanics to the ancient Eastern philosophies, there is a balance to everything. For every negative, there is an equal and opposite positive. Like yin and yang, negative and positive coexist in equilibrium. I am not a physicist. I scraped by both physics classes at the Naval Academy, but it's very important for you to realize that you cannot have a negative without a positive and vice versa. Why is this important to becoming unstoppable in achieving your goals? Because you will face all kinds of obstacles along your journey, and your ability to overcome these obstacles will define your direction and destiny. As thought leaders from John Adams to Deepak Chopra have said many times, obstacles are nothing more than opportunities in disguise. When you accept that there is always a positive to a negative, then there is no such thing as an obstacle. It is just another opportunity for you to learn something new. This is easily written but hard to embrace, especially when those around you are convinced the obstacle is too great to overcome. There are so many people willing to quickly tell you what you can or cannot do, based on their own beliefs of what they can or can't do. Do not allow other people to set your limitations for you. Adopting Rule 3 requires practice, which is exactly what we are going to do next. When you combine these 3 rules, you will find you have all the components you need to persevere confidently in the direction of your dream. We head for the Positivity Gym because building a positive attitude is a muscle, and muscles are built in gyms. Positivity requires practice, and you can practice in the gym anytime and anywhere. Imagine for a moment, you are on a deserted island, and the only way to escape is to swim, but you aren't strong enough to swim the distance required to a much bigger, lusher island that you can see in the distance, just on the edge of the horizon. To get our bodies in shape, we need to perform some exercises. We don't need many exercises, but we need just the right ones that will help our minds and bodies escape this desolate island for a bigger, better island within our grasp. This simple metaphor captures the challenge of pursuing something new. Your current location be so familiar that it's like an island, which over time becomes more desolate as you become more familiar with it. But the tide is rising, or perhaps more apropos, the sea level is rising and your island of familiarity is feeling smaller and smaller. You decide you are fed up living on this shrinking island and want to get to the new, lush, beautiful island you see in the distance. But you are scared of getting eaten by sharks or drowning or being swept away. To overcome your fears and fire yourself up, hit the Positivity Gym on your island. Leaving your shrinking island, spend the time in the Positivity Gym and, before you know it, you aren't fearing your journey to the new island, you are looking forward to it. The night before you are to leave, you can barely sleep. You have performed your Positivity Gym routines so many times that you have already envisioned what you are going to do when you reach that new island. The morning comes, and it's time to go. You conduct your Positivity Gym routine again. Stretch, you know why you're leaving, and you don't fear the path ahead. Pull negative thoughts are pushed aside, and your mind is pulling in positive can-do thoughts for each leg of your journey. Deadlift, you're curious about how your new board and sail will work. You're curious about the sea state wind, currents, and waves that can help propel you even faster to your destination. In core, you remind yourself of all the work you have done. You even compliment yourself on getting to this point. You marvel at your handiwork of your board, sail innovation, and then you give yourself the final core exercise. Let's go, I got this. The trip has all kinds of challenges. The sail sometimes pushes you backward. You fall off your board multiple times. You think you see a shark following below you, then you realize it's your sail's shadow. The wind changes, which then changes the course of the waves. You adapt by using your Positivity Gym exercises. You learn to tack with your sail system and again start making progress. The island is in plain sight now. Your confidence swells. You tell yourself, you are doing it. You got this. You fall off your board, but this time you laugh because you realize you can touch the sandy bottom and decide to walk for a while, enjoying the final leg of your journey. By the time you arrive, you are smiling and telling yourself, "I can't believe I worried about this journey for so long. That was actually fun. I wonder where I can go next." Along the way, you make mental notes on how to modify your sailcraft to make it faster and more maneuverable. Your mind is already back in the positivity gym, thinking about how to improve your ideas for the yet-to-be-determined next journey. You arrive. You are tired, but it's a great tired because you are satisfied with yourself. Your confidence has grown. The sea is no longer a place to be feared. Instead, it becomes a source of inspiration that can help transport you to a new destination. You get a pina colada and sit on a beautiful beach, and as you watch the sunset, you start dreaming up your next goal. Okay, you may say, "Alden, that's a little bit of a stretch for a metaphor." Sure, your remote island is unrealistic, but that's not the point. I want you to visualize the current shrinking island, because that is what life can be like if you decide never to take action toward your goal. You remain stuck on your island of sameness guaranteed by your decision not to move forward. You do not act on your goal, or, worse, you give up because the fear of staying where you are is less than the fear of not getting where you want to go. There are all kinds of forces at work trying to push you back to your island of the known. The wind, water, and waves are actually external forces you will inevitably face from other people, friends, family, experts saying, "You're not ready. You're not enough. It can't be done. You must." Learn to push them aside and harness them as fuel to propel you forward. Curiosity, and the creativity that comes from it, is your secret weapon, and it is activated by getting deeply curious about how to overcome obstacles. When you learn to coach yourself by speaking positively to yourself, you realize that what you say to yourself matters. Those comments keep you seeking solutions instead of focusing on the fear. The positivity gym works because you must think of it like a gym, a place to exercise, a place to practice techniques that help you get stronger. When you incorporate the exercise routines of the positivity gym with the 3 rules of positivity gym: Rule 1, you own your attitude. Rule 2, your brain, body are swim buddies. And Rule 3, there's always a positive to a negative. Then you will discover your greatest challenge in life is your ability to dream up greater dreams. F5 ambushes IR and maneuver F&M is one of the most dangerous and unique exercises in SEAL Team. The operation has several stages to it, with the most advanced stage involving a platoon of 16 SEALs conducting live fire bullets drills in various environments, from the woods to specialized urban terrain. Simulating actual combat is a very dangerous evolution because you must practice perfect muzzle control where your gun is pointed and pay particular attention to what you are shooting at to prevent ricochets from injuring a teammate. It happens in practice as well as combat. The single most intense aspect of F.M. is dealing with an ambush. An ambush is an unexpected enemy attack. It can be terrifyingly disorienting, overwhelming, and lethal. Every millisecond counts when you encounter an ambush. Go the wrong way and you can send your entire platoon to their deaths. When an ambush occurs, it's the platoon commander's job to assess the situation and decide quickly how to respond. The immediate response most of the time is firing back while deciding which way to go. There are times when you hold fire, but that's a longer conversation. I will never forget my first F.M. drills. We were in the deep woods of an old army base in Southwest Virginia, miles from anyone. Our instructors were Vietnam-era SEALs, and their single focus was simulating the most realistic combat scenarios to ensure we were in the proper mindsates, both mentally and physically. In other words, tired. They had us conduct a series of long-range platoon navigation drills. We were on patrol in the woods for miles. The instructors shadowed us, guiding us with very specific directions deep into the woods. When we first started our patrols, our senses were heightened. We were anticipating an ambush at every turn, but as the hours passed by, we became more relaxed, even nonchalant about this patrol that was feeling more like a long walk in the woods. And that was exactly what the Senior SEAL Master Chief wanted us to experience. He wanted us to let down our guards. He guided us into a riverine area where we were following a small stream. On both sides, there were small hills, each about 100 yards in height, with steep, muddy slopes. I remember looking at the stream and thinking, I wonder what kind of fish, when my daydreaming was harshly interrupted by the yell of contact front. We instinctively hit the muddy ground as our point man opened fire on a series of camouflaged, remote-operated pop-up mannequin targets. I crawled up to him, tapping his heel to get his attention, to give the command to peel back. This is a move that allows the front person to get out of the line of fire while the next person in line resumes firing to provide the lead cover fire, and it repeats until the platoon is safely out of harm's way. Within 2 peels, another teammate yelled, "Contact right." Just as I was processing the next series of pop-up targets, I heard, "Man down, man down." One of our instructors had given the death tap to our lead machine gunner. When in a firefight, there is comfort in hearing the sound of your machine gunners laying down suppressive fire. We could all hear the impact of him being told by the instructors that he had been catastrophically hit. My mind was racing. We had the sets of contacts and 1 man down, and just as I was about to make a decision, another man down, rang out. I froze, thinking, what the hell are we going to do now? My platoon was firing into directions, and shooting with such intensity that small trees were starting to fall in various directions, one nearly landing on one of my teammates. I was looking left, forward, right, and rear. I repeated my round-robin of searching for an escape route when I heard, "Contact left." The instructors activated another set of remote enemy targets. We were being shot at from 3 sides: front, left, and right. Man down, man down. My 3rd platoon mate, another machine gunner, was out of the fight. Our rifles sounded like pop guns compared to the loud rat-a-tat-tat of the M60 crew-served machine gun regular infantry combat units require to people to use the M60. SEAL team mandates 1 person, a very strong person, to use that weapon. Now I was overwhelmed, trying not to leave my men behind while coordinating 3 different enemy engagements and making sure trees didn't land on us. But I was too slow in the decision-making process. Another second ticked by, and then I heard, "Man down, man down." The senior SEAL ran over to me, grabbed the lapels of my fatigues, and yelled over the live firing of the 12 SEALs left, "Sir, what's the call?" "Make the call, sir." I'll never forget the look in his eyes, intensity mixed with delight. I really got the feeling he was enjoying my floundering in this simulated combat situation. 45 minutes and thousands of bullets later, with half my platoon shot, simulated wounded, or killed in action, he called a halt to the ambush exercise. We were soaked, muddy, drenched in sweat, and shaking with adrenaline from the FM of a 3-sided enemy ambush. We spent the better part of another hour walking through a whole series of mistakes we'd made and what we could learn from them. Some of the mistakes the senior SEAL made sure we made, such as walking through the bottom of the small canyon where an enemy could shoot down on us from both flanks. There were lots of tactical discussions, but the most strategic one I learned that day was the importance of staying calm in the face of fear, in this case, an ambush. The moment I let my mind drift to the negative was the moment I lost my ability to think creatively about how to solve the problem I was in quickly and effectively, and that's what this chapter is about, helping you deal with the ambushes life throws at you. Amygdala 101. Training for an ambush is like training for running your ship aground or hitting submerged obstacles. It is something no one wants to happen because you must react to a completely unexpected and often violent situation. You may never experience a military ambush or hitting a submerged obstacle with your ship, but I am certain you have been ambushed many times. I use the term ambush as a metaphor for the unexpected happening to you. It might occur when someone calls you out for poor performance in front of a room full of colleagues or teammates. It could be a flanking ambush where you are fired because another company bought yours and you're out of a job. Perhaps you get ambushed from the rear, where something happens you did not see coming that stops you in your tracks. Sometimes, these ambushes can feel like they are coming at you from all sides. When an ambush happens, there can be an immediate sense of despair and helplessness, a point when we look inside ourselves and ask, why is this happening to me? When we attach to these selfish and pitch-oriented thoughts, we activate this little almond-sized element of our brain called the amygdala. This organ deep inside our brain is our survivability reflex organ. Think of it like a little nitro booster for a car engine that momentarily revs the engine extra high to produce extra horsepower. When a nitro booster is released into a car's engine, the highly flammable liquid supercharges the car's engine for a brief period of time. In the case of our bodies, our nitro booster brain organ, the amygdala, secretes its own form of highly flammable liquids called cortisol and adrenaline. These two hormone superchargers hit our bloodstreams with adrenaline, which elevates our heart rates, revs our engines, while cortisol redirects our digestive systems to find quick-burning fuel from sugar versus fat. They work together to keep feeding our engine body to rapidly burn fuel sugar to keep our heart rates up so we can move quickly to either fighting or fleeing. In some extreme cases, our bodies can get so overwhelmed by the immediate secretion of these two chemicals that we freeze. I call these reactions the 3 F's of an ambush: fight, flight, or freeze. The amygdala has been widely researched over the past 20 years, and the results have helped researchers understand not only how it works, but also, most importantly, how to control it. It's very understandable, when an unexpected event happens to us, to have an amygdala response. For example, the best basketball shooter on your team cannot take the game-winning shot because she is double-teamed, so she passes the ball to you. There is 1 second left on the game clock, and you must make the shot to win. Or the executive team tells you at the last minute, you are the one making the sales pitch that could save the year in sales quotas for your company. Stress is stress, and you do not need to experience the stress of someone shooting at you to experience an ambush. We all put pressure on ourselves, but when someone or some situation unexpectedly places even more pressure on you, that is a prime time for your amygdala to fire. And when it does, there is one more thing you must appreciate. It redirects blood flow from the front of your brain prefrontal cortex to the back of your brain. The front of your brain is where creative, problem-solving, and compassion, which is key in collaboration, occurs. In keeping with my car analogy, it allows you to drive your car like a Formula One driver, swerving, weaving, dodging, and drifting. The back of the brain is not nearly that creative. It is much more like a drag strip racer, either burning rubber or going fast in a straight line for a short period of time, when the focus is on much simpler directions: forward, stop, or reverse. The way to conquer an ambush is by using your innate creativity to overcome the uncertainty of the moment. Yet our brains have this ancient biological reflex of prioritizing surviving over creativity. Still, the large majority of the ambushes we encounter today require creative solutions, rather than survival reflexes of fight, flight, or freeze. I share this important neurological fact with you because, anytime you decide to pursue a dream, it will involve taking actions that you haven't performed before, which heightens the likelihood of encountering lots of amygdala ambushes. If you aren't careful, a few amygdala ambushes might cause you to give up on your dream. To override your amygdala, 2 really important tips are: 1. Be aware. The first best tip is recognizing when you are in an ambush. The moment you recognize that, you will be able to keep your composure and act on tip to point 2. Breathe. In SEAL Team, they now have platoons learn the box breath, a series of 3-second breaths and holds starting through the nose and exhaling through the mouth with 2 breath holds, 1 as you breathe in and 1 after you exhale. This series of breaths allows blood flow to continue to the front of your brain to help you think under pressure. Here's how to do the box breath. Breathe in through your nose for 3 seconds. Hold for 3 seconds. Exhale for 3 seconds. Hold for 3 seconds. Repeat this 5 times. For more on breathing techniques and learning how to hijack the amygdala, check out James Nestor's book Breath. It may seem odd that the first tip is to just recognize the ambush, but the more you get accustomed to recognizing situations that are potential amygdala alerts, the more you'll be intentional about doing something about it versus doing an amygdala knee-jerk style reaction of fight, flight, or freeze. In SEAL Team, you train to recognize potential lethal ambush situations so you can avoid them. After all, the best way to handle an ambush is to not put yourself in the position to get ambushed. Of course, that is not possible all of the time, especially when you are entering unfamiliar territory, such as going after a goal you have never pursued before. Back to the car analogy. When you learn to drive, what's the number one skill the instructor wants you to learn? The skill of learning to drive defensively, to always be on the lookout for that potential ambush by other drivers either not seeing you or not paying attention to the road. I'm not suggesting you go through life on the defensive, but when it comes to trying new things, practice anticipating potential ambushes. The act of preparation can help you remain calm and creative when and if something unexpected occurs, which will reduce the chances of the amygdala hijacking your responses. Internal ambushes up until now. The ambushes I've touched on have been external ones, those that happen to you and against which you must defend yourself through calm, creative thinking. However, some of the most challenging ambushes are the ones we stage against ourselves. How do we ambush ourselves? By becoming attached to our thoughts. If we aren't careful, we will allow a series of thoughts, which I call a narrative or negative script, to run on repeat in our heads enough times that they will trigger amygdala-like responses. You know those moments before you are about to give a speech and your mouth goes dry, hands get sweaty, beads of perspiration form on your forehead and under your armpits, and you start getting the shakes. Or the times just before we take the test on which we need to get a certain grade to pass the class. Or be it's the tryout for the team we so desperately want to make or the sales pitch we must land to hit the quota. How about the times when you're less dreaming about the idea of trying out for the varsity team or thinking about making that new idea into reality or challenging that person's direction because you think you have a better plan? You know those moments, the ones that you have only thought about privately, the ones that you haven't even shared with anyone yet while you deliberate on whether your idea is any good. These are places where we can get ambushed too. And they are brutal ambushes that can leave no survivors. Your confidence or conviction to share or press on with your idea can fall victim to this attack. How many times have we all had a great idea, but decided that it was not worth pursuing because it wouldn't work or it was stupid or I can do it or insert your excuse here. Just at the moment of your decision-making to take action toward your new idea, you ambush yourself. The ambush might not cause a rush of amygdala secreting cortisol and adrenaline, but it might as well be because it can have the same effect. The ambush I'm referring to is you're becoming attached to fear-based thoughts. To understand why this can eventually trigger the amygdala, let's return to the importance of the swim buddy concept, considering one of the most powerful pairs, the thinking-feeling loop. I like the way Byron Katie, creator of a method of self-inquiry called The Work and author of several books, describes thoughts in her book Loving What Is. Thoughts just appear. They come out of nothing and go back to nothing, like clouds moving across the empty sky. They come to pass, not stay. There is no harm in them until we attach to them as if they were true. Once we attach to a thought, we associate a feeling with it. For example, I am floating in warm Hawaiian water with thoughts of relaxation, warmth, and tranquility. The feelings of comfort, peace, and calm relax me, causing my body to secrete the feel-good hormone serotonin. I seek to stay afloat as I focus on breathing and enjoying every moment of peace. I am loving the moment as my body and mind relax. In that example, I am making a personal leadership decision, leading myself to relaxation. I am concentrating on attaching to these wonderful thoughts that generate corresponding feelings of joy and peacefulness. I want to stress this point to you in this moment. I am making the decision about what thoughts I want to attach to. Let's consider a second example. Me again, floating in exactly the same body of Hawaiian crystal blue warm water. But now I'm thinking about the most recent shark attack in this area. My mind races to answer. What kind of shark was it? A tiger shark. I think, what time of day do they feed? How close to shore do they come? What island had the last shark attack? Maui. Wait, I'm on Maui. What side of the island? West side. Hey, that's the side of the island I'm on right now. Get out of the water now. In the second example, guess what kind of ambush is happening to me? If you guess an amygdala ambush, you are correct. What triggered the ambush? Me. I ambushed myself. I attached to a thought and then kept attaching 2 more thoughts. And what kind of feelings got generated? Fear-based ones. What triggers the amygdala? Fear. Thoughts are harmless to us until we decide to embrace them. The moment we embrace or attach to a thought, we give it energy, and that energy comes from a thought and feeling connecting. The end result is an emotion, which we already discussed its energy in motion. That was a simple example. Now let's use a more goal-oriented example, the new idea example. New idea scenario 1. Over weeks of experiencing a product that I use all the time, I realize that this product can be improved. I think of how to improve this product. My mind races to building a new brand that can help people. I get excited about the idea of helping people and dream about what it would be like when people rave about how my new product helped them. I decide to carve out 30 minutes after dinner every night to work on my innovation. There are so many things I don't know, but I'm certain I can figure it out. I know there's a lot of work ahead, but I keep thinking about how fulfilling it is for me to work on building something new that can help others. I start working longer hours on it. I kiss my kids goodnight, and as I do, I find more inspiring thoughts of making my kids proud because I am going after a dream, exactly what I want them to do when they get older. My thoughts and feelings continue to spiral upward even when I am presented with inevitable setbacks. I persevere. New idea scenario 2. Over weeks of experiencing a product I use all the time, I realize this product can be improved. I see the improvement immediately, so quickly in fact that I say to myself, why hasn't anyone else thought of this? It's too obvious, I think, and say to myself, someone is probably already working on it. So I decide not to take any action. A few more weeks pass. The current product is beginning to annoy me even more because I know it can be better. I revisit my reasoning and wonder, what if I built a better product? As I start to daydream, I reason with myself, that's ridiculous. I haven't gone to school and learned how to build a better product. I can't do that. Again, I pass on taking any action toward building a new product. A few months pass and I notice while shopping that there is no product on the market that solves the problem I see. I think again, what if I actually built it? Then I think about startups that go bankrupt and their founders who lose their houses and get sued. And I bet they even lost their friends and were run out town because they made headlines in the local newspapers. I get a jolt of dread throughout my body. I cringe at the thought of losing everything and telling my wife we have to sell the house. I decide I can deal with the less than perfect product and stop thinking about improving that product. I attach to the thoughts I cannot build this product, and even if I did, I will most likely not be successful. This second new idea scenario was mine for years. I have a sketchbook full of ideas that other inventors brought to market years later. I talked myself out of lots of good ideas because I led myself to connecting with thoughts and consequently feelings that generated emotions that moved me to not go after those ideas. I had created the idea for the perfect push-up in 1995 on a submarine mission. I spent upward of 50 days on a submarine and had long periods of time that I needed to keep myself occupied. Besides working out, I learned to type and sketched ideas in a notebook. It was not until after I'd worked at a series of civilian jobs after the military that I decided it was worth the risk to try to bring a new idea to market. It was only after 4 years and a failed companies that I brought Perfect Push-Up to market. The reason the Perfect Push-Up exists is because I learned to attach to thoughts that were helpful in propelling me and my team forward instead of ambushing me into quitting or not even trying. I can give you scenario after scenario of attaching to thoughts that are either helpful or hurtful, from writing a book to trying out for a team to not applying to a school because I didn't think I was good enough. The thoughts we connect with start a snowball effect of energy production that can propel us forward, make us turn around, or stop us in our tracks, i.e., fight, flight, or freeze. The thinking-feeling loop can either spin you forward or backward, depending on which thought you decide to embrace. Be aware of your thoughts. Over time, the actions you take determine your direction. Remember, my singular focus in sharing this knowledge is help you take the next action toward your success. It is the next action that matters. There is no need to worrying about a series of future actions. I want you to focus on just the next helpful action you can take. Exercise, hurtful or helpful. Here is a simple exercise I want you to practice now and until your last breath. It involves asking yourself and your teammates a very simple question. Is this thought helpful or hurtful to what we are trying to accomplish? My boys hear me asking them this question all the time, especially when they are expressing some emotions, such as I am no good at this, my team sucks, I'm not going to early morning practice because other teammates aren't either, or why should I be the only one working so hard? My response to these and so many more emotions is asking them, boys, is that thought helpful or hurtful toward helping you achieve your goal? I say it so frequently to them, the question is now abbreviated, helpful or hurtful. Of course, they don't really get it at that moment because they are already ambushing themselves. Their amygdala is firing because, before they voice their frustration to me, they had spent time attaching to thoughts that generated powerful negative emotions. By the time their thoughts reach me, they are already in full fight, flight, freeze mode. In the early days of parenting, I would engage immediately with them to attempt to get them to see a different point of view. And most of the time, I failed miserably because once the amygdala has hijacked your prefrontal cortex, it can take up to 20 minutes for its nitro-boosting hormones to flush through your body. During that time, I have found the best thing to let them move through those emotions as quickly as possible by getting them to express how they feel, for example, having a yelling contest, or helping them move their emotions through physical exercise, for example, pillow punching or wrestling. If you don't move the energy, it will stay with you until you do. Once their venting has peaked is when I typically ask them, helpful or hurtful? This process of awareness of the thoughts you are attaching to an important unstoppable action. I promise you there are opportunities every day for you to practice this. Seek them out and boldly ask yourself, friends, family members, or teammates, helpful or hurtful? Building this habit of asking yourself this question will help you avoid spending your precious energy attaching to a thought that will generate hurtful emotions that will derail you from accomplishing your dreams. B6 Opening your can of Woo Pass. Why now you have a general understanding of how potent thoughts are to our success. Let's level up and discuss how to build unstoppable thoughts on demand by opening your can. First, a quick refresher. There are 3 kinds of thoughts: past, future, and present. If we attach to negative thoughts in the past, we will experience emotions that lead to depression. When we connect to negative thoughts in the future, we will experience emotions of anxiety. Depression and anxiety result from negative attachments. This chapter is about helping create and attach to high-performance thoughts in the present while preventing attachment to past or future negative thoughts from impacting your present performance. Now, remember the unstoppable exercise. Play the opposite game from Chapter 4, where I noted that there is always a positive to a negative. So, what happens when you play the opposite game with negative thoughts from the past or future? You will learn to prevent yourself from sliding down the slippery slopes of depression or anxiety because you will find the opposite thoughts to each hurtful thought, which in turn will lead you to dramatically improving your performance in the present. Of course, it takes practice to do this, and I want to share a tool that can help you succeed at turning your thoughts into high-performing ones. Here's a brief Navy SEAL story to give you the background on how I came up with the tool that I call opening your can. Before every Navy SEAL mission, the platoon commander and his chief petty officer, the senior enlisted man, perform a platoon inspection. No two missions are the same, and because each person has different responsibilities in the platoon, it's vital to ensure everyone has the mission-critical gear needed to carry out the mission. The inspection process requires the senior leaders of the platoon commander and chief to visually inspect guns, medical equipment, radios, demolition gear, night vision goggles, and so on. The inspection can take a while and is sometimes mundane, especially if a teammate has forgotten something and they have to run back to get the missing item and start the inspection again. The military equipment is obviously important, but there is one piece of equipment that is more important than all the others, and I would ask every one of my platoon mates every time if they had it: their can. I learned about inspecting for their can from my very first chief, a senior chief petty officer who was an old-school SEAL. He would often pull me aside and say, "Sir, all these new electronic toys are distracting. I don't want the platoon to rely on these things because they can break." And then what? I remember looking at him quizzically and slowly saying, okay. So, what do you want them to use, Senior Chief? He didn't miss a beat as he looked at me and said, "Sir, no mission ever goes as planned. I want to make sure every one of our boys has their can of Woo Pass with them." The analogy of the can of Woo Pass from SEAL Team is something I have carried forward and modified over the past 25 years. It is great to be fired up and focused on what you need to do, but it's even more helpful to direct the energy by attaching to a series of thoughts and actions that will help you perform at your highest level. I call this technique opening your can. I have made an acronym out of the word can: concentrate, activate, and narrow. The process of opening your can requires you to attach to positive thoughts that have happened in your past and those that you want to happen in your future. I will start with a simple sports-related example from my son, Charlie's water polo club. Charlie was a high school water polo goalie. He now plays for one of the top D1 college programs in the country, USC. One of the most difficult roles for a water polo goalie is blocking 5-meter penalty shots. These penalty shots are just like the ones in soccer or football, where the shooter is directly in front of the goalie, waiting to take a shot upon the referee's whistle. In soccer, the shooter is using his or her feet, while in water polo, the shooter is treading water and using his or her arm to throw the ball. Blocking 5 meters shots can completely swing the momentum of the game and definitely impact the shooter's confidence. Typically, the one taking the 5-meter shots is the best shooter on the team. If a goalie can block his or her shot, then quite often that shooter's confidence is impacted throughout the rest of the game.